A narcissist lying is pretty much instinctual. And after it's been going on for a while, like it's just habit. It's just something that happens no matter what. A lot of times people are confused about this. Like, why does he lie about the smallest things, about like the stupidest things of like where he went, he stopped at the grocery store, or like the salad dressing he put, like, or what he had for lunch. And you start to see that there's these really, really stupid lies that he comes up with. And maybe he's either a good liar, or a lot of times narcissists are really bad liars too. But you see this and you're like, it doesn't even make sense. Why would he lie about this? That it ends up being this like blanket piece that ends up coming out from narcissists, where they start to lie about things that they think is going to bring shame, bring guilt, and they have to be able to run away from it. And then they start lying about smaller things because it just seems easier. If I lie about this, then I can avoid this person's response or this person's feelings, or I can avoid the accountability. And then they start lying about anything and everything because they're like, well, this works, so why not just do it? Now, I make that sound kind of trite, but like I want you to understand, like a lot of times lying for a narcissist is a learned and a grown effect that's happened over a period of time where they've gotten used to, well, let me just lie because lying seems easier. A lot of times when I would lie, it was to preserve my own mindset. Now, bear with me for a second before you just jump off the video, because I'm not bringing a case up for woe is the narcissist, okay? But I'm bringing up this idea of like in the narcissist mind, it's this idea of I have to protect myself, okay? Because it's about the ego, it's about my image, about what I want. So I have to protect me because it's all about me, okay? So in this regard, I have to protect myself. And when there's this piece of the accountability, there's a piece of shame, there's a piece of guilt that comes up. It's like, what do I have to do to get away from that? When you feel this piece of shame and piece of guilt, a narcissist is like, I need to get away from that as quick as possible. The easiest way is just to say that it doesn't exist. Gaslighting, right? To myself or to other people. But the easiest way is just to lie about it. Like, did that happen? Yes or no? No, it didn't happen. Oh, okay. Then I don't have to hold you accountable. Sweet. No shame, no guilt. Don't have to worry about it. And you're like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, if I did something wrong, I'd want to apologize for it. I'd want to be that way. Narcissists don't want to do that. Okay? They don't want to do that because on the backside of that comes this piece of guilt and shame. Now, before you write me off and you're like, narcissists don't feel guilt, narcissists don't feel shame, they're still humans. They might not act like it the majority of the time, but they're still humans. Again, this is not a woe is the narcissist, because I'm a narcissist and I don't have a lot of compassion for narcissistic tendencies because I've been there and done that. I understand what it is, and I understand that it's also possible to work on changing, developing, and growing those to be a better person, to be a better version of myself. Transformational growth, not just temporary changes. So when we talk about this piece of like when you're dealing with this, and when he's dealing with this piece of like shame and guilt, and then just gets layered on with these lies and lies and lies, in his mind, he's trying to avoid this piece of shame and guilt. Okay. Now, guilt is this idea of, hey, I did something bad. Shame is this idea of, I am bad. Okay. Shame is the thing that is attacking and chopping away at the narcissistic ego. This what makes them a lot of times very insecure about themselves, insecure about who they are, insecure about things they're doing, all different things like that. So they need validation, praise, approval from other people. Okay. So instead of acknowledging the guilt and the shame and dealing with the accountability that comes from that, narcissists like, that didn't happen. That doesn't exist. Let me ignore that. Moving on. And so what it does is it starts to compartmentalize. It starts to box things up and push them to the side. So like, this issue happened? No, it didn't. Let me box it up. Now I don't feel as bad about myself because I don't acknowledge that this is even here. Then we push it away into the dark recesses of our mind, and we're like, hey, that no longer exists. I don't have to worry about that. It's gone. Is it really? No, it's just compartmentalized, which is why you have different times when a narcissist might have random mood swings, random breakthroughs, because there's different things sometimes popping out of the mindset that they tried to put away and they tried to hide from. Now, all of this only works under the layer of lies. So you're going to see a narcissist that continues to lie and lie and lie no matter what. Of like, I need to lie to keep the high of lying, okay? Because there is a high of lying. Think of it this way, like if you play a joke on someone or you tease someone or you're like, oh, this is here when it's not there, and it's like this funny piece going back and forth, there's a piece where it's almost like a little bit of a high of like, ha, I fooled you with that. Okay, think of like when you were young and you like scared someone. Okay, like you dressed up as a ghost, or for Halloween you dressed up as somebody and you scared someone. Okay, in that moment there was this lie of like, oh, look, this is a different version, this is a different person, when it actually wasn't. It was just you. Okay, but that was the lie in the moment to convince someone of something else. And so you're going to see narcissists that are going to continue to lie and perpetuate lies because there's a little bit of a high there. Like it feels good for a narcissist. Is it skewed up? 100%. But it feels good, and they start to associate that good piece over a long period of time, and it starts to feel more of a high. I just did something and got away with it. Think of like a lot of the movies that you might watch where like you start rooting for the bad guy. You start rooting for the guy that stole the money or did something like the Robin Hood or whatever it might be. Like you're starting to do something. You're like, wait a second. In normal life, I would be pissed off if this person stole from me. But in this movie, this is actually pretty cool. Like they did an amazing job. It's like a high. They got away with it. They broke out of prison. They got into the vault, all this kind of stuff. Okay. And so like when a narcissist is telling a lie, it starts to have this little bit of addictive piece of a high of like, I just did it and I just got away from it. I got away with it. Then you compound that over years and years and over small to large lies and becomes more of a high. So think of it, for instance, like this is where you catch a narcissist having a relationship with someone else. You catch him cheating on you and he cuts it off. Then he's like, okay, I'm done. And a lot of times it's not even because you caught him. It's because you ruined his high. You ruined the drug of choice that he could do something and get away with it. Now he can't. So I've seen this a lot of times where he'll break up. He'll completely like forget about that relationship. He'll be like, I'm done. And then later on, he'll start it back up, or he'll start up a new one so that he can put that under the lie because of the high that comes from lying. So narcissists oftentimes are lying because they're avoiding this piece of shame and guilt. They're lying because it's the high. It's like the piece that comes with it that's like, oh, this is amazing. They're also going to be lying, and it becomes this habit over a period of time based on control. And with control, we're going to talk about a couple different ways. But control, first off, about their ego and about their image, how they actually look. You see, it goes back to the shame and guilt as well, but like I have to lie to appear a certain way. If I'm going to keep this facade, this image that's over here for other people to see, I have to lie to be able to protect it. So if it's in question, nope, that didn't happen because that would affect my ego. That would affect my image. So you're going to see a lot of times a narcissist that will lie to protect that. You'll also see a narcissist that lies a lot of times to control you to protect that. Sometimes people get confused that narcissists just like to control you. And while that is true a little bit, that stems more into sociopath and psychopath. A lot of times a narcissist likes to control you in order to control their image. It still comes back to image. It still comes back to themselves. You have to understand the majority of narcissism comes back to the narcissist no matter what. Like they do something for you, it's to make themselves feel better. They do something for you, it's so that they feel less bad about something else they did. Like it's always about them. And it always circles back around. It's hard for people to understand that, but that's typically what's going on. Okay, so you have different lies that are going to happen. The other lie that you want to talk about is really this aspect of lying to be able to avoid your feelings. You're like, what? Like my feelings? They don't even care about my feelings. I get it, but here's how it breaks down. A narcissist is concerned about his feelings, his emotion, his life, all of him, right? Okay. So when you come into the picture and you bring in other emotions that are not his, that's an inconvenience. That's an annoyance. Like you just brought drama into my life. You're like, no, I didn't. You caused the drama. Okay, I get it. But like we're talking from his perspective, okay? So like for a narcissist, it's like, let me lie to be able to avoid you feeling a certain way so that I don't have to feel a certain way. We've been going through this just in like couples therapy of like, okay, there's times when I want to avoid something or I don't want to even talk about something because then I have to engage with her feelings. Now, what happens is when I have to engage with her feelings, with my wife's feelings, that means I also have to engage with my feelings. So again, it comes back to I want to avoid me. I want to avoid my feelings. I want to avoid the ick, the vulnerable stuff. And so I'm going to avoid it as much as I can to try to get away from it. And so when I have to engage in this conversation that's like highly emotional, then she becomes emotional. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Here's all this emotion that's now coming at me. How do I fix it? How do I move away from it? A lot of times the narcissist is going to want to lie to avoid emotion. He's like, if I can lie, then you don't feel, then I don't have to feel, then I don't have to deal with any of the stuff I've shoved away, and I can continue living my life thinking everything's perfect, thinking everything's fine, and I don't have to actually acknowledge the stuff that's going on. So the hard thing is you have a narcissist that lies and does this so much on all these different levels, all these different types of lies. It gets to the place that it gets really hard to be able to see the truth or understand the truth. And this is why sometimes you'll have small like breakdowns with the narcissist where he like sees the truth for an instant, then it's like covered back up. Because there's all these different lies that he's been telling himself and other people for years that doesn't even let him see the truth. He's too afraid of shame and guilt, how it's going to affect him. He's too afraid of how he's going to be held accountable. He's too afraid of how it's going to impact his image. And he's too afraid of how your emotions are going to cause him to feel. And that would bring about this honesty, this vulnerability, this like death in one sense to the narcissist. So lies upon lies upon lies to keep perpetuating the lie that he's a good guy.